Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door has many badges Mario can collect and wear that give him special effects and other traits in battle. It's one of the biggest reasons people hold the first two Paper Marios to such high pedestals over every other. And many other people have already ranked these badges according to not just facts, but their own subjectivity and bias, even having made their own tier lists and videos about this and the first Paper Mario game's badges, with JDAster64 even having gone as far as to make a whole blog about him. The way I rank these badges is based on not just my own bias, but also my own personal experience when playing the game and the way I usually always play it. I'm not only a Danger Mario strategist, but I'm also a lucid badge hunter who won't think twice about using Kiss Thief. That's why I enjoy backtracking through Twilight Trail in the game and made a video about it. I'm letting you know all this now so you understand how I rank these badges. With that said, let's get right to it. First off, I will not be ranking cosmetic badges or other utility badges that do nothing more than serve a purpose or adjust the game a little bit. But I would like to talk about them for a little bit. The attack effects badges, which are named after the first letter of their respective colors, serve to make Mario's attacks sound cooler, but that's it. The L and W emblem badges serve to make Mario look cooler, and you even need the L emblem badge for this one side quest, but that's it. There's only one place in the game where Slogo is even remotely useful, and that's the room with the Palace of Shadow with the hidden spikes. The same one where you find the All or Nothing badge. Putting Slogo on here makes you less likely to accidentally fall for the spike traps here, and in the remake it's even better because the badge slows you to before a spike trap springs up. In the remake you also don't take damage for touching the spikes from the sides, and they even stay up for as long as you're near that trap. For HP and FP+, as a Danger Mario strategist, and as someone who prioritizes badge points over everything else, I'm always upgrading my badge points, and occasionally my flower points over my health points. Then I always go to the Piano Parlor, invest money, make lots of tokens, and buy as many HP and FP+ badges as I need. I even posted a video on this channel on how you can grind for Pianta tokens in the Switch remake. HP and FP+ basically just trade badge points for health points or flower points, and that's why I'm always upgrading my badge points and getting as many as I need, so I can adjust all of my stats and my badges with respect to the situation I find myself in within the game. And once I achieve danger strats, I don't bother with HP pluses anymore, and once my FP is high enough on its own without FP+ badges on to increase it after hitting 99 badge points, I don't even bother with FP pluses anymore either. That's why it wouldn't be fair for me to rank these two badges. Timing Tutor with its 1 badge point cost is no different than training wheels on a bike. If you want to learn the timing for stylish commands which get you extra star power in battles, then this badge is for you. Until you do finally learn stylish commands like I did after I wore this badge during my first playthrough in years, then you can use that 1 spare badge point for something else. The only purpose of Double Pain is to make the game harder for players who find the game too easy. Players that want a challenge. I'm not one of those players, despite being a Danger Mario strategist. I never once found myself wearing this. But that's just me, and you do you. Nostalgic Tunes is exclusive to the remake. It costs almost nothing in the badge shop, and it's there to let players listen to the music from the original GameCube version of the game instead of the new Switch remixes, and the remake exclusive music tracks in the game. I personally like wearing this when I'm off grinding for money or badges during or after a playthrough of the game. We begin with the lowest ranked badges on the list, which I feel are the weakless or most useless badges in the game. Badges I would never wear at all, or maybe one time for one thing and then never again. Badges I would sell to the shop for money and then never buy back. Let's begin. I never wear the Peekaboo badge in this or the first game. It's always the last badge I buy from Dazzle in this game or from Merlot in the first game. It lets you see your enemy's HP, but with Goombella's tattle ability or Goombario's tattle ability in the first game, you can see it anyway. And as a completionist, I always tattle new enemies on encounter unless they're bosses or certain enemies whose tattles go in Frankly's trash can anyway. Seeing the HP for Koops' shell shield and your partner's HP when they're all on Duplis' side at the end of chapter 4 is really all this badge is good for. For me, HP plus P is garbage. Sure, it increases the health of all partners across the board by 5, but it costs twice as much BP as a regular HP plus. Partners already have plenty of health on their own, and as a Danger Mario strategist, I'm always putting them on the front so they tank hits as much as possible, and to get them down to exactly 1 HP so they can take advantage of Mega Rush, which is easier to do in the remake. For more details on that, keep watching the video. Not much to say, I hate return postage for the very same reasons you all do. It's a very bad pit prize that works better as an expensive trophy you can choose to sell to the badge shop if you need the money. The remake could have at least buffed this badge so it worked more like it does in this mod hack of Paper Mario called 1000 Year Door 64, where the same badge with the same badge points makes all kinds of attackers take all the damage they do. A whack-a-bump, even a golden one, would make a much better pit prize than this collectible stamp of a badge. And then Simplifier, I just don't feel it's worth it to make action commands harder for extra star power when I already get plenty of star power by other ways, even with 1 or 2 simplifiers on. Head Rattle, I will admit confusion is a very fun status effect. It is fun seeing enemies hit each other, but like most hammers it only works on the frontmost enemy. A jumping variant of this badge would rank much higher on this tier list, with jumping being far more versatile in Mario's moveset. You want to confuse your enemies? Stick to Vivian's Infatuate ability. Hammer Throw was an okay badge in the first Paper Mario, but there's way better options available by the time you get it. The remake even nerfed this badge by keeping its attack power at 2 for each copy of the badge worn regardless of your hammer. This badge was subpar before the remake nerfed it. Thanks a lot, Nintendo. Tornado Jump, Soft Stump, and Shrink Stump are all okay badges in the early game, but for me after that there's way better options available, especially when you can one-shot your enemies and there's no need to give them hindering status effects. Even Tornado Jump is overshadowed by Multi-Bounce, which comes later on this list. If you're finding this tier list to be useful and informative, and you want more when it comes to games like Paper Mario the 1000 Year Door, be sure to subscribe for more. Now we come to the badges that for me get some use once in a while, but only on rare occasions and no more. Let's go. I agree that using Hammerman to power up the hammer and give up Mario's more versatile jump set isn't worth it. I only ever put this on for the Glitz Pit in Chapter 3 or the second time when the battle condition calls for no jumping, so I don't accidentally disobey the condition. As someone who's into danger and peril strats, I would rather get and keep my partners at 1 HP than wear HP Drain P, so this badge is useless unless I'm doing a badge build where I want my attacking partner alive, and if I can offset the attack loss, even if this and its regular counterpart were nerfed from the first game. With Happy Heart P, it's the same as I mentioned with the previous badge. I want my partners in peril to take advantage of peril strats. I only use this when I'm hunting badges with Miss Mouse and her Kiss Thief ability, and I don't have the badges I need to completely protect her from damage and need to keep her healthy through every single enemy attack. If you were farming a single enemy for badges, you'd know why. I only ever use Ice Smash at the beginning of Chapter 5 against the Ember enemies, then never again. Charge and Charge P are nice badges to have for their intended uses, but I prefer to have them when I'm strategizing with my flower points, when I have no other way of only using one flower point for anything. I am referring to the point swap item and the strategies I've made around it, and this video on my channel that talks about those strategies. Heart Finder, I know it's important to stay healthy, but not when you're running peril strats on your partner. I get enough heart drops without this badge when my partner's in peril and I have to avoid them. I would just switch to a partner I do want healthy, like Flurry or Miss Mouse, before picking up the hearts, especially when I do need Mario healthy when he's in danger all the time, if you know what I mean. Now the D tier badges. These are badges that I do get more use out of in the game, though not as much as some would think I should. But I do use them whenever I feel my badge build can use them. Damage Dodge and Damage Dodge P. At first, these can be useful when guarding is crucial, but in the long run, I don't bother guarding any more than I have to, and I always prefer trying to super guard. I don't even bother with these badges when hunting badges with Miss Mouse, since badge hunting is a game of patience and many turns. It's way more efficient to just be able to stop enemy damage altogether than to have to guard against it every single turn. Super Appeal and Super Appeal P. Like I previously stated, I get enough star power without badges like this, but I do slap one on when I have badge points to spare. I don't like how you can buy all the regular Super Appeals you want at the Pianta Parlor, and yet extra Super Appeal Ps have to be farmed from enemies. Refund is the game's ultimate throwaway badge. It's nerfed compared to its Paper Mario 64 counterpart, and I always put this one on first when I have one badge point to spare, especially when I have way too many items I need to burn through. Pity Flower? Not very pitiful if you ask me. JD Aster 64 said on his badge tier list that the FP you gain from this should be tied to the damage you take, or that it should be guaranteed every time you take damage. Even though he's right, I would be happy to slap this on whenever I'm hunting badges with Miss Mouse and my badge build isn't enough to completely negate damage to Mario. Then when Mario does take damage, this badge would kick in. Plus Kiss Thief costs 2 FP, or 1 FP with a single flower saver. But that's only if I can spare the 3 BP, which is a bit steep. Double Dip P. Being able to burn through more items in a single turn is great, but the only reason I'm putting Double Dip P this low on the list is because of a strategy I figured out. To learn what it is, keep watching this video. Last Stand P is good for carefully easing my partner's HP down to peril, but once they're in peril where I want them, this badge becomes useless. And depending on the enemy's damage output, I don't even need this badge when I can just let my partner fall to 0 HP anyway. That's where after the battle I either bring them back with a dried shroom or something, or in the remake they come back on their own, at exactly 1 HP. Peril. Otherwise it would just take longer to get them to peril. Very situational decision to use this badge to gain peril strats. Protecting your partner from harsh status effects with Feeling Fine P isn't as worthwhile as you think when you're playing partner peril strats and you're switching out partners constantly with quick change to keep them safe, while another partner that's not in peril tanks all the hits. More about this later in the video. But I could use it against enemies like wizards when badge hunting, and so could you. Pretty Lucky P, and Lucky Day. Not getting hit is nice, really, but as someone who gets off on danger and peril strats, I want my partner getting hit just so their HP goes down to 1. And then I can use Pretty Lucky P to protect them, unless I'm switching them out to do just that anyway with quick change. And once Mario is in constant danger, so to speak, I'll always be prioritizing the way cheaper Close Call badge over these anyway. Did you know that 3 copies of Pretty Lucky are 1 badge point cheaper than a single Lucky Day and offer a slightly better miss rate? And yet I would slap on a couple of these for Mario and partner when I'm badge hunting, or when I've got badge points to spare, or both, but that's about it. Mega Rush, I know it's tempting. 5 extra attack points for putting Mario into such a dangerous position, but in this game it is not worth it. Not when there are stage hazards that could potentially kill Mario, and even if he has a life shroom, he won't be in peril anymore if he has to use it. I don't usually go for this since you also need to have a backup strategy in case Mario does lose that last health point. But I did play around with Peril Mario once during my playthrough of the remake when I battled Prince Mush before Chapter 4, which I showcased in one of my videos. I did not expect that video to get so popular since it was very poorly edited and was mostly just raw footage, but I'm very thankful that it did, and I did get an understanding of why it did. But let's keep going. And now the C-grade badges, or rather my C-grade badges. Badges that have a lot of potential, and I do wear some of them when I need to, and they are at times useful, but not all the time, and they get overshadowed later. Let's get into them. I don't bother sacrificing potential star power for easier action commands with the Simplifier badge. That's only usually when I'm badge hunting, and I want to make the action command for Kiss Thief much easier. So I wear 1 or 2, depending on how many I have, for that. But that 1 extra badge point I have usually goes over to the refund badge otherwise. But since badge hunting is a tedious yet fun side quest of mine, it's why this badge is a very low C tier for me. Defend Plus and Defend Plus P. As great as having more defense power is, what good is it when I'm up against enemies that inflict piercing damage? No, I prefer to prepare for everything. Why do you think I ranked the damage dodge badges lower than this? But when I don't have enough P down, D up badges to negate all damage, I turn to any copies of these that I may have for when I'm badge hunting instead. The Lucky Start. I like this badge. Very underrated badge if you ask me. Sure, it's overshadowed by Zap Tap and the Slow Shroom and the gradual syrup items, but I take what I can during or after Chapter 4, at least until I can get something better. All or nothing. Alright, before you guys yell at me for putting this badge so low on my list, I have to tell you, as someone who lives dangerously in this game, this badge is severely overrated and easily overshadowed. It comes way too late in the game, at Chapter 8 in the Spike Trap Room in the Palace of Shadow, or dropped by an Arantula or Dark Craw in the Pit of 100 Trials if you're really lucky. I actually did get an all or nothing badge drop once. This badge gives you more attack power, but in return you're expected to perform action commands perfectly, which I don't always do. Plus this badge can negate damage on the last power bounce or even throw me off when I'm multi-bouncing. For me there's lots of better ways to raise your attack power, and I found this badge to be more of a burden in this game than helpful. But only in this game. If we're talking about all or nothing in Paper Mario 64 with its limited number of badges and limited potential essential to Mario's attack power, this badge would easily be an S tier badge and not an overrated C tier like on this list. I'm really sorry to anyone who loves this badge and holds it higher than I do, really. Please understand my position on this, and I thank you for that. Power Rush P. As someone who loves putting partners into peril, this badge is basically a weaker Mega Rush P, which can still come in handy for when my partners are not quite there yet when I'm working on getting them to peril. If I don't have enough Mega Rush Ps to make my partners absolutely overpowered, I'll happily try to compensate with as many of these as possible. But until then, the Zap Tap badge is a lovely badge with a lovely effect that literally makes the Lucky Start badge 25% less useful, since that badge has as much as a chance to do what Zap Tap always does for 3 turns only, instead of permanent. Its best use is against Fuzzies, Swoopalas, and other enemies that make direct contact with Mario. Completely useless against ranged attackers like Piders or Wizards of any kind. Still very fun a badge when it works though. Power Jump and Power Smash are good for the extra attack power early on in the game when you can get them, but only early in the game, not later when they get overshadowed by power boosting badges and better types of jumping and or hammer based badges. Piercing Blow is a very good badge for the early parts of the game. I'd put it on against high defense enemies like Klefs, but it gets overshadowed by the Quake Hammer badge as early as Chapter 2 of the game. After that, I don't bother with Piercing Blow unless I can't afford Power Quake in my badge builds. Great badge for piercing defense, but only when there isn't a better option. There's lots of times during the game when I burn out and decide not to bother with weak enemies, which is when First Attack comes in handy. But for it to work, I had to land a First Strike on my enemy, which is why I rank Bump Attack higher than this. But I am grateful that the remake reduced this badge's cost to 0. Much more convenient in terms of having the option to not fight an enemy. But having to First Strike all of them, I prefer Bump Attack. Alright, now we're at the B tier badges, which are badges that I do like and get a lot of use out of, just not all the time, and at the same time, not very commonly. It depends on what the badge is, really. Let's get to it. For me, Jumpman is more of a B- tier, since you have to give up your hard-hitting hammer for it. And I sometimes prefer the hammer since there are hammer attacks that sweep entire enemy lineups with a single flick of the stick, followed by the single press of a button, which I'll get to later in the video. Just like with Hammerman, I usually only wear it during Glitz Pit matches when the condition is no hammer, so I don't disobey that condition. Mario's more versatile jump moveset puts Jumpman high on my list, but only this high. P down, D up, and P down, D up, P. I love these badges. If you wear enough of them, the respective character becomes completely damage proof, and that includes piercing attacks and stage hazards. These 2 badges are the linchpins when I go badge hunting. And the attack power reduction doesn't bother me at all when I'm badge hunting, since I need the enemy alive to steal from anyways, and plus danger and peril strats allow me to easily offset this attack loss anyway. The partner variant is especially good since you get it 3 chapters earlier than the Mario one, so my partner with peril strats isn't accidentally knocked out by a stage hazard. These are easily the badges I hunt most for with Miss Mouse, and proud to have done so. Now we get to Double Dip. Being able to burn through more items in a single turn is great, and there's even a strategy I discovered with this badge that lets you exploit this badge's use. Okay, so the strategy works like this. You get out Goombella if she's not already out, and you use her Rally Wink move to give Mario her turn. Mario can now use both his turns to double dip for a total of 4 items in a single turn with only 3 BP for a single double dip, and not having to spare another 3 BP for double dip P, as long as you have enough FP. You can even take this strategy a step further with both of the game's copies of Double Dip for a total of 6 items on your 2 turns at half the badge point cost, as long as you have the total required FP needed to do it. Now, HP Drain. I'll admit this badge isn't as good in this game as it was in the first, even if you manage to get multiple copies of it and stack them. But when you're living in danger like me, the attack loss is easily offset, drowned out by the many attack boosting badges you'll be wearing and you can keep your HP up while you keep attacking. Money Money is a great badge for when you're poor and need money, especially if you spend lots of tokens at the Pianta Parlor to invest in as many of these as you can. The cap for enemy coin drops is 32 in the original game and 99 in the remake. Wearing 12 of these can net you as far as 99 coins from one of even the weakest enemy in the game, or so I've heard. But it's up to you how many you want to wear when you go grinding for money in the Pit of 100 Trials, or anywhere for that matter, especially with this badge's high badge point cost. Feeling fine. Protecting Mario from status effects is more important than protecting your partner, and even though you don't inquire this and Feeling Fine P until Chapter 7, at least it'll be useful against late game bosses along with its partner variant, just like JD Aster64 said in his blog. Power Plus and Power Plus P. Always some of the highest ranked, most sought after badges in the game, with their ability to raise your attack power with no strings attached, and always worth the high badge point cost to the most seasoned Paper Mario player. But little do you forget that I am a dangerous Paper Mario player who put badges like this at B tier just because there's better options available. Close Call is, without a doubt, the best way to keep Mario safe, especially when he's perfectly in danger. Wearing enough of these will make Mario almost unhittable, but not completely unhittable. For more details, check out JD Aster's blog. I also made a special calculator in Excel using JD Aster64's formulas that he got from the game. You can use it to calculate what the miss rate will be for Mario or his partner depending on how many of each badge he's wearing and whether he's in danger or not. And now, Bump Attack. Very hard to get badge and very high badge point cost that wasn't even reduced in the remake, unlike First Attack. I always put this on when I'm burned out from playing the game and when there's a bunch of enemies in the way that I just don't want to fight. For example, those ice enemies between Rogueport Sewers and Far Outposts, since I usually beat the Pit of 100 Trials by then, having access to all the power rushes I want by then. Those ice enemies have no good bad drops. They are not worth fighting except to get their tattles. JD Aster64 ranks this badge as an F tier since you can usually utilize First Attack better without the hefty badge point cost. But for me, that cost is worth it to not have to first strike everything I want to avoid. I would interchange those 5 badge points between this and the Money Money badge. What about you? Chill Out is a very underrated badge in my opinion, and yet the best Paper Mario players think this badge is garbage. Even JD Aster64, who I've already mentioned several times in this video, thinks it's garbage. What puts this badge so high on my list is just that I don't like it when an enemy gets the first strike. I just don't like that. It's super annoying to me. The first game even keeps track of both your and your enemy's first strikes, which is so annoying. Even though Thousand Year Door doesn't, it still annoys me when the enemy strikes first. Except for that one time in the Glitz Pit with the Goomba in Chapter 3. That one is scripted, and that one we can't avoid. So what if I can just guard or super guard? It's still annoying. Some enemies like Z-Yuxes on the moon and Chain Chomps are annoying in this regard. But did you know in the remake, Mario just takes damage from things like Hammer Bros and Z-Yux attacks outside of battles? Just like in the first game, this badge has to be bought in star pieces from the respective NPC. Dazzle in this game, Merlot in the first game. Unlike a lot of players, I don't really leave Chill Out for last like I do Peekaboo. Think, say, and comment below what you want, but I will still always try to find the star pieces for this badge. It especially comes in handy in the Pit of 100 Trials, where you're potentially liable to get first struck at least once on your way down. At least we can agree this badge is better in Thousand Year Door than it was in the first game. Sleepy Stomp is an amazing badge to have for the early game. Putting enemies or even bosses to sleep is really helpful, and my favorite situation to use with this badge is when I'm battling Amazy Daisies in Twilight Trail or in the Pit of 100 Trials. I put them to sleep so they don't run away or worse, cripple the heck out of me. For me, this is the third most useful jump badge in the game behind Power Bounce and Multi Bounce, which I'll get to later in the video. Happy Heart is important for keeping Mario healthy, especially when he's running danger strats. That 1 health point per turn per badge is even more valuable when you're Danger Mario, since you only have 5 HP then. Between Happy Heart, HP Drain, and all those danger badges, and the occasional slow shroom, Danger Mario is very, very difficult to take down. Feel free to fight me on that in the comments below as we move on to the A-tier badges. Yes, now we're up to the A-tier badges. These are the badges that I get the most use out of. Just not like the S-tier badges. These are badges that I almost always have on and wouldn't take off unless I absolutely didn't need them. Let's go! Item Hog is a great badge for players who like to use items, and this badge also goes great with the Refund badge. It also increases the chance of a badge drop from an enemy. I even made an Excel sheet with data about this badge, which is based on data from JDAster64's blog about battle rewards. Sticking this badge on gets you more items and an increased chance of a badge drop. Say what you want, but I like these odds. It's like going into a Pokemon game and hoping in the back of your mind for a shiny Pokemon encounter. You never know. I like Flower Finder because flower points are important in this game, so occasionally I slap this on to get more of it from enemies. But what sticks out for me the most about this badge is its missable obtainability. Sure, you can buy the one from Dazzle, but the only overworld enemy that can drop this badge are X-Naut PhDs, an enemy that will disappear forever after Chapter 7. The only other enemy that could drop this badge is the Shady Paratroopa, and they never appear as an overworld enemy, not even in the Pit of 100 Trials. And no, the one in the Glitz Pit isn't good for this. Meanwhile, the Heart Finder remains a renewable drop from Shady Paratroopas and Elite X-Nauts, who, like the PhDs, are gone forever after Chapter 7. It bothers me to no end that the Switch remake didn't do anything about this. So much so that I made a separate file from before I finished Chapter 7 from one of my playthroughs, since of course hacking this game is out of the question. That way I can feel content in getting all the flower finders I want, at least for this save file. And I did actually manage to successfully get at least one flower finder this way. Being the seasoned badge hunter that I am, of course I would talk about this badge's availability and its obtainability in the game more than about its use and purpose. But that's just me, and you do you. Discuss it if you wish. Okay, next badge. The FP Drain badge has the same limits as HP Drain in this game, but it's a nice way to save flower points aside from Flower Saver. You can even essentially make your 1 flower point moves free with this, if they hit. The hack of the first Paper Mario game called 1000 Year Door 64 has this badge functioning the way HP Drain does in the vanilla first Paper Mario game. In the early game, that attack loss can hinder you, but as you get stronger it doesn't matter much, and like with HP Drain you can offset and even drown out the attack loss with danger strats. Lovely badge to have, really. Now with Close Call P, because I use peril stress for my partners as I've previously stated, it is important that I keep them safe in case I ever leave the mountain battle and forget to switch them out with a healthier partner, like Flurry or Miss Mouse that I would use for tanking once everyone else is in peril. This badge could even keep those partners safe when their HP is whittled down to danger or peril levels. Unlike Last Stand P, this danger badge is very much a keeper, especially in the late game. Okay, speaking of Last Stand badges, now we come to the regular Last Stand badge for Mario. On the chance that Mario, while he's in danger or using danger strats, is hit by an attack in spite of any close calls he has, I want to minimize damage to him as much as possible. These badges divide damage to him by 1 plus the number of these badges equipped rounded up, unlike the first game which rounds down with its 1 Last Stand badge versus the multiple we can get in this game. With enough of these equipped, Danger Mario has the luxury of only taking 1 damage against enemies, similar to a golden seedling, an enemy from an indie game called Bug Fables, and this damage is quickly healed off by things like Happy Hearts and HP Drain and the like. The P Up D Down badge. Unlike All or Nothing, this cheaper Power Plus type badge is worth the extra damage you take from everything else, as long as you know what you're doing and you're not completely careless. I know very well not to make the mistake of equipping both this and its reverse counterpart of P Down D Up. Hope you do too. Mario doesn't even need danger strats to use it, but I would very much prefer to use this without danger strats. And in a badge build with no P down D ups, I put this badge this high on the list because of how good attack power is in general despite the costs. And yeah, you could make the same argument about all or nothing, but if you watch the video this far, then you already know where I stand with that. A combination of P up, D down, and defense plus is good, but a combination of P down, D up, and power plus is better. Both have their ups and downs, literally. Let's keep going. The Ice Power badge, just like its Paper Mario 64 counterpart, is found exactly where you need it most, right when you're faced with lots of fire enemies that you want protection from. Ice Power gives you that and an advantage over them. In a way, Ice Power is like the jumping variant of the Ice Smash badge, but like Mario's jump moveset, it's so much better. This badge is vital for overall badge builds when taking on the Pit of 100 trials. The Spike Shield badge is part of why Mario's jump moveset overshadows his hammer moveset. It allows Mario to jump on spiked enemies without needing the hammer, and it even makes bristles approachable. Like many of you, I just wish this badge was available earlier in their game like it is in the first game. Like as early as Chapter 2 and not as late as after Chapter 4. Or Chapter 3 in the Japanese version of the GameCube version where the spike floor has a long enough delay for you to ride Yoshi across. Very vital badge to have on for the remainder of the game, more so than Ice Power. Power Bounce. Okay, this is it. The big one. The classic, the most worshipped, most highly regarded badge in the history of Paper Mario. This is the one that puts your action command skills to the ultimate test. The one where you bounce on a single enemy over and over until you miss. Of course, it is capped on bosses, so it's not that overpowered. All Paper Mario games even keep track of your highest number of power bounces on a single enemy. The first game, of course, shows it on the battle statistics menu in Mario's house. The original 1000-Year Door shows it on a sign near the Pit of 100 Trials. But the remake, however, shows your highest power bounce count on the badge itself. Just scroll to the badge and scroll down to see it. Now, for me, this badge doesn't quite make the cut of S tier, but it is very much the A+ tier badge on this list. The reason it's no S tier for me is because I don't use it very much except on bosses. I have other badges I use to sweep entire enemy lineups, especially with danger and peril strats, and also the Switch remake nerfed this badge by floodgating it. That means that the 4th jump only has a 1 frame window before going back to 5 frames with the 5th jump and decrementing it from there. This makes it hard to get more than 4 jumps on a single use of the badge in the remake. At least when I do miss a jump, it will do damage to the enemy if I'm not wearing All or Nothing. So that's another reason All or Nothing is overrated. Nevertheless, when it comes to pure attack power on a single enemy, Power Bounce is definitely the best. End of story, and also the end of the A tier badges. If you're finding this tier list to be useful and informative, and you want more when it comes to games like Paper Mario the 1000-Year Door, be sure to subscribe for more. Alright, this is it, we've made it to the top of the list. Congratulations to you, the viewer, for watching the video thus far and staying with me as I went over all the badges. To cap off my tier list, we now go over the very best of the best badges of TTYD. These badges are the ones I use and rely on the most, overshadowing so many others, and I will hardly ever unequip them for anything else. Are you ready? Let's go! Starting off here is the Quick Change badge. I actually made a whole other video talking about this badge in greater detail, but here's a brief summary. Despite the high badge point cost for something many argue should be a main component of the game anyway, Quick Change is crucial for many of the strategies I go with in the game, from danger strats to peril strats to the use of point swap. Once I'm able to make room for it, I never seem to take it off unless I really need the badge points for something else. Sometimes I even sacrifice it for other badges when I'm in the Glitz Pit and the condition calls for not switching partners. This badge wouldn't even be this high on the list if I didn't hold it to such a high regard, or if I didn't depend on it so much. One common instance that I don't wear this badge, however, is when I'm badge hunting with Miss Mouse and her Kiss Thief ability, obviously. but I just can't see myself without this badge almost anywhere else that I'm depending on multiple partners to help me get by. Once I put this badge on during a playthrough, I get used to it, and I'm just not comfortable without it, unless I'm perfectly well aware that I don't have it on, or simply never bother switching partners like when I'm badge hunting. The point is, this is a very critical badge for me, and I feel more comfortable with it, hence why it's this high on the list for me. P up, D down, P, one of only 2 partner badges that for me supersedes its normal counterpart, with the other being Mega Rush P. I made it very clear in this video that I like to use peril strats with my partner, and this badge not only powers up my partner without the need for peril, but it also lets them take more damage from enemies to get them down to peril sooner the more of these I have on. I'm always very happy when an elite X-Naut or a wild Dark Koopa Troll is holding this badge, because then I'm sure to have Miss Mouth use her Kiss Thief ability to steal it from them. And also when they drop this badge anyway, giving me access to it sooner than when I would find the game's only natural copy of it in the Palace of Shadow inside the big room of the game's final chapter. This badge isn't just good for peril strats, but also for getting there, while making my partner into a total powerhouse. Definitely a badge I stick to once I get it. And now, here we are, finally, Mega Rush P, the center of my peril partner strategy, the linchpin of peril strats, the whole reason I build a whole strategy around getting my partners to take hits to get them down to a single health point. The reason this badge is so high on both my list and JD Aster 64's list is because of the sheer risk versus reward of the strategy. Putting Mario into peril to use regular Mega Rush is just too dangerous, because if he falls in battle, it's either game over or not having peril strats anymore if you have a life shroom. But if a partner falls in battle, then sure, you'll be at a disadvantage and all enemy attacks will go directly to Mario, but at least you won't get a game over, unless Mario falls in battle shortly after. That's when you change partners, which is helped greatly when you have quick change on. After the battle, in the original game, partners stay at 0 HP and you need to give them a dried gem or something to bring them back to 1. But in the remake, they always go back to 1, which is far more convenient for this type of strategy. As far as breaking the game goes, Mario can stick to danger while his partner takes the further risk of peril. And being the danger / peril strat fanatic I am, of course I would value Mega Rush P as much as anyone values Power Rush, the original one, which is coming up on the list. With Happy Flower, considering how important flower points are, I always buy this from Dazzle over Happy Heart, and I always try to never take this off no matter what, so I don't get stuck with no flower points in battle. I always put on both natural copies as soon as I can, because that's how important they are to me. And of course, this badge can't ruin Danger or Peril strats for me, although it can affect the point swap strategy that I go over in the other video of mine. And Gradual Syrup is better, but that is an item and this is a badge, so this badge is a must-have, especially when I'm fully equipped with both copies of each Flower Saver badge and the game's best jump and hammer badges. Ah yes, here we are with the Flower Saver badges, Flower Saver and Flower Saver P. It's good to see their badge point costs reduced compared to the first game, because now these badges don't eat up too much of my badge points when I equip them to save flower points on my best equipment, while Happy Flower and FP Drain both work to keep my flower points up. I'm also super happy to get a Flower Saver P drop from a Crazy Daisy, so I have a total of 3 of them to reduce Goombella's Rally Wink attacks cost all the way down to 1 flower point. Flower Savers of both kinds are must-haves going into the game. Fire Drive is easily the best hammer-based attack, except when you're up against fire enemies, and especially more powerful against ice enemies. I don't have that much more to say about it except for the burn status that it inflicts and the fact that it's your best badge for doing a pre-Hooktail Pit run. But I tried one of those once and it was horrible. Though I did make a separate save file off one of my playthroughs in case I ever decide to do it in the remake, but I probably won't. But I digress. For me, Quick Hammer is tied with Fire Drive as the game's best hammer-based attack. It not only attacks everything on the ground and on the ceiling, but it also pierces defense. Combined with other attack boosting badges, items, and such, Quick Hammer can easily sweep entire ground or ceiling based enemy lineups, and with both copies of Flower Saver on, it only costs 1 FP, which I'm guaranteed to get back through FP drain. Definitely a keeper badge. And now, at long last, we come to the ultimate jump based attack besides Power Bounce, which is Multi Bounce. Don't get me wrong, Power Bounce is great for massive damage to a single enemy, but Multi Bounce, of course, lets you bounce on and attack every single enemy in a typical lineup, except enemies on the ceiling. Combine this with Spike Shield, Ice Power, and lots of attack boosting badges, and you can easily sweep almost any enemy lineup, especially those in the Pit of 100 Trials. JDAcer64 calls this badge the go-to cheese badge for unambitious Danger Mario strategists in his blog, and it's not hard to see why. As someone who hunts and stacks way too many danger badges of all kinds and not just Power Rush, I hardly consider myself unambitious because of how determined I am to get as many of these badges as I can from enemies. Similar to a shiny hunter's willingness and patience with shiny Pokemon in a Pokemon game. But speaking of which, we finally come to the final badge on this list. The Power Rush badge! Here we are, finally the last badge on this list, and easily the most cheesy, game-breaking badge in the entire game! The letter on this badge changes depending on the version of the game. In the first game it was a P for power, but in TTYD and the English version of the remake, it's a D for danger. It's so easy to get too many copies of this badge after you beat Chapter 6 and you do a certain side quest where you unlock this badge as a prize in the Beyonta parlor. But don't get me wrong, there are times when I just don't like stacking too many of these with Danger Mario strats just to have him overpowered. Though I do at least want him to wear enough of these to offset attack power loss from badges like P down D up, HP drain, FP drain, but without spending too many badge points on badges like Power Plus. That is how you use this badge creatively instead of just stacking them to break the game and one-shot everything into oblivion, which, in my opinion, ruins the fun and takes all the challenge out of late-game bosses. Stacking too many of these with Mario's max HP being higher than 5, you could argue is another good use of this badge that doesn't drain all the challenge of the game out because of how Mario has to be pushed to his lowest point to access this power. In this and several other regards, it makes Power Rush one of the very best and most useful badges in the game for any kind of player who plays this game, whatever their strategies and style are. And that's the end. My entire tier list for the badges of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. For reference, here's a completed chart of the entire list. So what did you think? Do you agree with anything I said? Any thoughts or comments you'd like to share? Any arguments you'd like to make about anything I said in the video? Please post about it in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out some of my other videos on this channel like the ones I mentioned throughout the video. And happy gaming!